I could turn this on, but... Oh, somebody's watching. Oh. Give it a couple minutes to let people get on. I just tweeted it, so... Hi, whoever's here. Hi. 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 Now I'm just screwing around. Oh, damn it, you're screwing around. Yay, Nathan Gear Solid. Thanks much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Oh, yeah, I forgot that face thing is on. It is going to be a sideshow tonight. Time for some... Oh. It's not nice to talk about wings, although I did find out recently that there's a place here in town. They don't deliver or anything, but they do actually do wings. It's a restaurant I actually like. It's called the Lumberyard. And pretty legit wings. It's not like a bar wing place, but it's a bar restaurant here in town. And I had some Korean teriyaki and like some sriracha flavored, and they were fantastic. Still not as good as the place in Oshkosh that I love so much, but damn good. Damn good. So tonight might be a train wreck. I'm not sure. I'm a little out of it tonight. I got a lot on my plate though. Holy shit. Just look at the list that I made. By the way, having a special bourbon tonight. This is Maker's Mark. Has what's called the Private Select. And what it is, and I've talked about it before, I think, but they go to, let's say, a bar, like a big bar, and they offer this bar the opportunity to create their own recipe for the staves. So a lot of bourbons, a lot of whiskeys are all made the same. And maybe I'll just add this to the regular show. Give me a minute. Yay, B Dave! Woo! I think I should move that alert box a little bit. Woo! Get on the burger train. That's so funny because I keep forgetting that I have that on here. Let me move this out of the way a little bit. There we go. So I'll wait for a couple minutes and I'll get started. I'll talk about the bourbon thing. It's really fascinating stuff. To me, at least. But I also have a nice glass of ice water in my Royals cup that I got at the K a couple years ago. When I took my dad. Why do I have two? I was screwing around. I forgot that I had that little Logitech webcam up there. And I gotta move the chat box a little bit, don't I? Boop, boop, boop. Look at me, the slack-jawed yokel. There we go. Yeah, I was just screwing around and figured I'd have some fun with it tonight. Yeah, different angles. Because then I can go like this. Huh? 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 Brewers get a wild card spot? I think they're really going to stretch if they can get to the wild card. I really don't think that they've got a chance this year. Their pitching was just god awful in the middle of the season. Just awful. What is the dog doing? Oh, she's back there. Okay. I mean, they're still fun to watch. They're playing right now, actually. I don't have it on, but they're playing right now. And they've had some good games. They took it to the Cardinals big time. And I don't know who they're playing tonight. Well, they were playing San Diego. I don't know if they're playing San Diego again tonight. I'm still screwed up right now. As you can see, I'm a hermit. Look at this. But it is the fall in Wisconsin, so... All right, well, let's get started. Welcome to TorgoCast number 4. I did 4 of these? What the fuck? So, I don't know. It's probably out of boredom a little bit since I don't have a job right now. And I kind of miss talking about stuff. I do wish that I had someone to bounce things off of, but hopefully people in the chat can help me out with that. If you are listening to the audio, I do stream these as well. There's no schedule right now. I am thinking about if I keep doing this, I'll schedule something. I think it's been 3 or 4 weeks since I did the last one, so maybe I'll just do it once a month or something like that. But if you have any suggestions, come on over to the forums. There's usually a thread for each TorgoCast, and there's also usually a thread for the regular PS Nation podcast as well. But get in there and get involved. And, if you want to hear it, I'm not going to do it every week. I just don't think there's enough to cover every week. But if you want to hear it more, you want to hear it less, you want me to go away and retire, move to the nursing home down in Florida, I get it. I actually have a lot on my agenda tonight. Once a month, great idea. Yeah, I think so. I'll just have to figure out, scheduling and stuff like that, and, try to schedule it for, second Monday of the month or, something like that. Keeping in mind that hopefully someday I might have a job and I have to work around that, but... So, I usually stream this on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/psnation. And then I put the audio up usually a week or so after on our regular feed. So if you already subscribe to the feed for the main podcast, you'll automatically get this TorgoCast as well. I actually started thinking about a new name for it, and it was like this ridiculous P.T. Barnum-esque name, the retro, newfangled, automaton, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So... I'll bounce it off Mark, see if he has any ideas. Cause I know he and I were kind of riffing names a couple weeks ago. But this week, first thing is going to be talking about the Extra Life prizes a little bit because we are making headroom. And I do say we because a listener reached out to help. I got some stuff on my old shit list, including the Genesis Mini. The Poly Mega is close to shipping. The Dreamcast anniversary that we just had. The new Neo Geo Mini that's encased in the Bean joystick. That's... Man, what a cluster that is. And also the Neo Geo Core that just came out on the Mr. FPGA, which I will talk about relentlessly. And then new shit, Gears 5 just came out about a week or so ago. Wanted to talk a little bit about A Plague Tale Innocence. Not too much. I haven't played it for a while, actually. Borderlands 3, maybe. I don't have it or I haven't played it, but there's still some stuff to talk about. I was streaming Modern Warfare Beta the other day, and some people were asking about Wreckfest, so I figured I'd talk about that a little bit. I also streamed Control, which the replay is up on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/psnation. Death Stranding at TGS, we found a whole lot more out about it. And then I'll end with the Modern Warfare Beta. And then we do have some more things submitted by the community, so I'll hit those as well. Oh, your Genesis Mini shipped. Man, I got something in my throat. Hang on. It's funny with the Genesis Mini because I can't play it. Unless there's a way to hook a joystick to it, I can't play it. I can't use D-pads on control pads anymore. And I'm not the biggest Genesis fan in the world, but I wanted to order one just to have for collecting, even though it's funny because now I'm considering actually getting rid of a lot of my old stuff. I was actually pricing out the Neo Geo today even, maybe getting rid of all my Neo Geo games because we'll be talking about that Mr. FPGA in a little bit. But I decided I wanted it. And the reason I wanted it is because in Japan, they're actually offering what everyone calls the Tower of Power. And it's completely cosmetic. It doesn't work. It doesn't do anything. But for the Mega Drive Mini, they brought out plastic shells for the CD drive, the Model 1 CD drive on the bottom, and a 32X to go on the top, and a little cartridge. And just for aesthetics sake and for collecting wise, I just thought that was really cool. And I was a little bothered, I guess, today because some YouTubers that did some previews on the Genesis Mini, they got it early, which I didn't want a Genesis Mini early. I am asking for a TurboGrafx Mini early so I can review it. I'm still working on that video, but like My Life in Gaming and a couple of the other ones, actually, the US Sega actually sent them this Tower of Power, and I'm like, what the fuck? If they would have sold that here, I would have bought it here, but instead, I used our Play Asia affiliate link, and hey there, Fox. And I bought it from Japan. I believe it ships... Might have shipped today, or it's going to ship tomorrow, I think. It's shipping this week sometime. But what was funny about it was that I just realized, I think over the weekend when I was looking to see if they had a shipping date on it, that the Tower of Power package from Play Asia doesn't include the Mega Drive Mini. Which is weird. I thought it was a whole package when I ordered it. And I bought it months ago when I still had a job and I had money. So then I had to make a decision. Do I buy a Mega Drive Mini because Musha's on it, and Musha is one of the better Genesis games, and they don't have it on the Genesis Mini here in the US. They only have it in Japan and I think maybe Asia, Europe. Or do I just get a Genesis Mini? And went to Amazon. They're still available, so I just decided I'm going to buy just a standard Genesis Mini, which is, again, it's silly because I'm probably never going to be able to play it unless I figure out a way to hook a USB joystick up to it that works. But from what it seemed like, some of the news early on was that they kind of had a lockout to USB controllers unless you have the licensed Retrobit controllers, which I still think it's ridiculous that the US Genesis Mini only has a 3-button controller when Street Fighter II Champion Edition, or whatever it's called, is on the Genesis Mini, which is a 6-button game. The Japanese one comes with a 6-button, not the US one, though. How stupid. So I ordered that off Amazon. I don't know when it's showing up. I mean, I'm excited to check it out and everything, and I have the real Tower of Power. I've got a Sega CD Model 1, which I need to get fixed. I have 2 Model 2s, which both work. The second one I had fixed so that I could hook it up permanently to the Mega S Chief Analog, because that actually has Sega CD support, and it's awesome for what the Sega CD can do. There's some good games, but it was kind of funny, the whole thing where I thought the Mega Drive Mini came with it, and then it didn't, and I'm like, oh, fuck, because the funny thing is the price wasn't too bad, and that's what kind of got the gears going in my head, because it was kind of cheap comparatively coming from Play Asia, because usually you have to import something from Japan, it's going to have a premium price on it, and it was cheaper than the Genesis Mini in the US, and it really didn't make any sense. So got all that sorted. I don't know when it's all showing up. I don't think I got a message saying mine shipped yet. Let me see. No. So I mean, I'm excited for it. The reviews have all come out. The one thing that's, it's exciting because M2 handled all the conversions. And M2, they're legendary. I mean, they know their stuff. And Sega really showed some good initiative in this case. Because, they licensed the Genesis stuff out to ACT Games for so long. And those consoles that ACT Games make, those little mini ones, they're fucking awful. There is not a redeeming quality of any of the consoles that ACT Games have put out. And the funny thing is about the Mini, they were going to have ACT Games do it. They announced that originally. And all of a sudden they said, no, we're going to have M2 do it. And there was this huge sigh of relief. And even for me, who again, I'm not the biggest Genesis fan in the world. I do play it, but it's mainly Streets of Rage 1 and 2. But in terms of showing historical perspective and, just trying to do it right, Sega couldn't have made a better decision, in my opinion. I mean, M2 are the way to go. Those guys not only are they absolute geniuses, but they're passionate and they know the Genesis. But even still, because you're dealing with software emulation, there's reports of audio lag. I've seen some videos showing the audio lag. I think it wasn't My Life in Gaming. I think it was GameSack showed it, and it's pretty slight. I mean, you really have to be looking for it. And of course, there's those people out there. Whenever I have a little YouTube channel that I put a lot of retro stuff on. I call it Retro Nation. Whenever I put a video up, like I've been putting some videos of Neo Geo games from the FPGA, and of course someone's always got a comment like, oh, that filter looks like shit, because I'm not running it on a CRT, which that wouldn't come through on YouTube anyway. But there's always those video Nazis that play on a Sony PVM when they're at the house with the perfect scan lines and everything else, and no matter what, if you're not showing that somehow, they're gonna bitch. And I cannot be like that. I used to be a lot more hardline about classic games years ago, and I'm still pretty hardline, but didn't M2 fix the music? They did change it. The percussion especially sounds a lot different in some of the games. But I mean, M2, they fixed the pixels, they fixed a lot of things, and their emulation is near perfect. Audio lag is not uncommon with software emulation. It's not uncommon at all, because you're dealing with probably a pretty standard processor or a system on a chip, something like that. Nobody's opened them up yet, which is a little funny. I'm surprised nobody's opened it up yet to see what's in there, but I think it's going to be solid. I mean, I have better options here. I've got the analog Mega SG, which that even has a little bit of audio lag from what I heard. And even I find it funny that, because I've always thought the sound chip on the Sega Genesis, the Model 1, it's not that great in my opinion. It's very tinny, it's chiptune-y, which, I mean, I still like chiptune stuff. Streets of Rage 1 and 2 sound amazing, but I've never been that impressed with the sound on the Sega Genesis. Yet everyone talks about how almost impossible it is to emulate or simulate the sound chip. Even the FPGA stuff, the Sega Genesis core, people kind of point out little things here and there. Even the Mega SG, which does things pretty much perfectly, people point things out here and there, like with a single game. And the other thing is, when you look at the Sega Genesis Model 2, which is the smaller unit, it has a different sound chip in it, which actually runs at a different clock rate and all kinds of weird shit. So, I can't remember the game. There's a shooter that actually sounds very different between the two systems. Incredibly different. Like, it goes faster on the new chip or the old chip, I think it is. So it's really weird. And they put a checkbox on the Mega SG for that, which is pretty cool. But and on the Mr. FPGA, they actually have a selection before you launch the game, which sound emulation you want to use. But I'm excited for it. I'm probably going to take it. Well, I don't have to take it with me, but because Mark's ordering one too, obviously, Sega fanboy. But when I get the Polymega, we've already made a date for me to go down by Mark for the weekend and mess with all the new toys, and I'll get his opinion on the Genesis Mini, which I think he's going to be pretty favorable about. I think he's going to like it quite a bit. But I'm just tickled that Sega went the extra mile to do that Tower of Power. I mean, it's pointless. We all made fun of it back when they first came out, because you had this ridiculous Frankenstein's monster of hardware. You have the Genesis, you have the Sega CD underneath that are on the side, you have the 32X on top, you had about 8 gazillion cables hanging off the back to interconnect everything. And I love that Sega had the foresight enough to actually bring that along with the Mini. I thought that was really cool. And I'm not a big fan of some of Sega's practices, how they screwed over Sega of America when Sega of America was just ruling with the Genesis, and how Sega of Japan, really screwed them over. But it's nice to see that somebody can make a decision and do something good like this. So I'm excited to check it out. The games list, it's hit or miss. There's probably there's more good games on it than bad, but my God, how many block matching games do we need? You've got Tetris on there, which was never even an official release, so they're adding Tetris. They've got the Puyo Puyo game, which I forget what it is in the US, and then they've got the Mean Bean Machine. So you have 3 games on that list that are all Tetris-style games. Do we need 3 Tetris-style games? Seriously? When you've got so many other games like Musha and whatever. I'm not a big Genesis guy, but like Thunder Force 2, Herzog Zwei. Herzog Zwei is this tiny little game. I think it was a 2 meg cart. Herzog Zwei is one of the best games that ever came out for that system. You can't put that on there? You got to put 3 Tetris-style games? That's crazy. It's crazy. I don't know. So they made some good decisions. They made some bad decisions, in my opinion. And I'm not even the Sega fanboy. Mark and I have been talking about it a lot. And he seems pretty happy overall. I don't think he's watched any of the reviews yet, but we'll see what happens. But hopefully, I'll have that in I would think a couple of weeks. 2 or 3 weeks, something like that. I don't know how long it's going to take to get here from PlayAsia, but for the Tower of Power. But I'll put it together and put some pictures up, So the Polymega. I've been talking about this quite a bit. And some more info came out due to an interview on Electric Playground. The CEO of Polymega, who used to be a producer at Insomniac, actually. I forget his name. I've actually met the guy. Was on Electric Playground and did a pretty lengthy interview. And I heard some interesting stuff that I didn't even know about. First off, it sounds like they're still planning at shipping sometime end of the fall. That's a pretty broad window. You don't know exactly what that means. But I guess they're waiting on some chips from Intel, or they just got them or something like that. But one of the cool things about the Polymega that I didn't realize is, it's going to support, I think, 10 systems right out of the box. So it's going to support, if you get the modules. So the Polymega itself is the first box that actually does CD-based media. So it supports the PlayStation. It supports Sega CD, Sega Saturn, Neo Geo CD, TurboGrafx CD. But then for cartridge-based stuff, they have these modules that plug into the box itself. And you can play like TurboGrafx, Sega Genesis. I believe the 32X works. I believe he said that you can plug a 32X card in. Super Nintendo, NES. I guess Japanese Famicom games don't work because they don't fit, but you might be able to get an adapter to get that to work. But it's pretty cool. And I was a little hesitant because it's all emulator-based. And I've been really focused on FPGA for at least a couple of years now. I've bought into FPGA 100%. And I was really hesitant, but when I first pre-ordered the thing, which it was funny when I pre-ordered it, I didn't realize that I was paying for it up front too. Holy shit. Because I got the full package, so I got all the modules, everything. It was not cheap. I think it was like $500. Whatever. So it's going to be really cool, but the whole notion is the fact that it outputs HDMI directly. And with Saturn especially, even though somebody just released an HDMI cable for the Saturn, but the Saturn has always been problematic even through the OSSC because, and the PlayStation does this too, but not as frequently and not as harshly, but the Saturn games on the Saturn like to change resolution in the game itself. So if you go out to a menu, it changes the resolution, and it's a hard change. So when that hits the OSSC, if it's an odd resolution that it doesn't recognize, you lose video. How I've gotten around that lately is the Sega Saturn actually has a fantastic S-video output. And I've got the RetroTink, and I've talked about that before, which is this little box that has a component in, S-video in, which is huge because the OSSC doesn't do S-video, and composite in, and it does line doubling and everything, and outputs in. I love the Tink. It's awesome. It's called the RetroTink 2X. It's from a guy named Mike Chi, who actually just brought a box out that does component to RGB as well, and I've heard very good things. I just don't need that. But the Saturn's always been problematic, and I've never been a big Saturn fan. When it first came out, the way they released it and everything was kind of screwy, how they just dropped it on people here in the US. But I had bought into the PlayStation right away. I'd seen it at CES. I loved what I saw. Ridge Racer was my jam, totally my jam. And I went when I was in college. I don't remember the guy's name, but he was working at Blockbuster, and Blockbuster stopped renting the Saturn, and they gave it all to him. and he didn't want it, so he gave me this huge milk crate full of the Saturn and a ton of games, the light guns, a tap, like Saturn in a box. And I was appreciative. I still am. And I mean, there's some stuff to really appreciate on the Saturn, good or bad. But there's some neat stuff on there. And I'm not the biggest Saturn fan in the world, but I do play it more than I expected to. But space is becoming a premium in this house, and that's why I talked about last time, like maybe even selling off some of the older stuff, especially cartridge-based systems. So I might even get rid of my regular SNES, and might get rid of my Neo Geo and all those games, because that takes up a lot of space. And the FPGA core is that good. But the Saturn's cool to have, and 10-player Bomberman is something pretty special. And we don't play it often. We try to play it at MGC every year at least, but there's some really neat stuff on the Saturn, and it's worth having. It's just, the PlayStation's so damn good, and I love my option for the PlayStation right now, and I don't even know if I'll play very much PlayStation on the Polymega. I'm very curious, because it sounds like cartridge-based and CD-based, you can just pop it in and it'll actually dump the game off to the internal storage, and you can expand the internal storage either with an SSD, I guess, like plugged in SSD, or you can use like an SD card. So that's badass. If I can dump my whole library out to this thing, it's going to take a couple of days probably. But if I can throw all my Saturn games in there and just let them dump to the jukebox and play them like normal, that's going to be awesome. And they're really good about posting gameplay videos. And what I've seen so far looks really good. Especially Saturn-wise, which is one of the toughest consoles to emulate. One of the guys that wrote one of the better emulators, they actually hired him, and he's working full-time on their Saturn emulation, which is cool. So I'm getting more comfortable. Some of the guys that I like watching on YouTube, like My Life in Gaming and Digital Foundry, they do the retro stuff, DF Retro, and they got to see the Polymega and play around with it at E3, and they all seemed very favorable for it. So I'm excited, and it's internet connected, so they can update the firmware. And what I found out from this Electronic Playground interview was that it sounds like, and it was kind of a roundabout question, but it sounds like they want to add Dreamcast and GameCube support to it too. And because it's internet connected, they can just literally upload that functionality via firmware update. That's cool. I love the GameCube. I have a really cool HDMI adapter for it that works fantastically well. I've got the component cables for it, which are incredibly tough to find and go for hundreds of dollars on eBay. But this HDMI adapter, it works really well, and it works off the component signals. So it's very favorable. Dreamcast would be cool too. I was actually messing with my Dreamcast yesterday. Oh, I moved the controller. I have three Dreamcasts. And I was messing with it yesterday, trying to run it through the OSSC, and man, it was a nightmare. I was hooking it up via VGA, which I love the VGA output on the Dreamcast. I got an HDMI adapter for it from Pound Technologies, and I've got a couple of the other ones. I have their SNES one, and I have their cable for the PS1/PS2, and they're fantastic. But the Dreamcast one, when you compare it to VGA output, I just don't like it. The color just seemed washed out, the whole thing. But the PS1, PS2 cable, it works for both. Man, it's awesome. It's how I play the PS1 right now. My PS2 is broken, but the drive tray on it won't work anymore. So looks like my camera froze. First time! That should be a drinking game whenever one of my camera freezes. Because Elgato's drivers suck. So yeah, the Polymega, it's exciting. And that I'm actually really thrilled for. I wish they would kind of tell us an idea, at least, of when they think they're going to ship. I think they're afraid to do that until they get the chips from Intel. That's understandable, but the waiting's tough. The other one is the GBA consolizer, which I've talked about before. I got the GBA EverDrive, and I got that all set up. So I'm waiting for that so I can consolize my GBA and play GBA games via HDMI on the TV, which is going to be awesome. That's a great little 32-bit system. I love it to death. the TMNT game, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game from Ubisoft on the Game Boy Advance is freaking awesome. So if you have a GBA, grab that game. Because there's like a couple from Konami, but the Ubisoft one is awesome. The Dreamcast anniversary. Everyone always makes a big deal about it. All right. Okay. The Dreamcast, in my perspective, is a funny story. I was one of those people that had seen... Well, let's see if there's anything in the chat. Ray says Herzog is also one of, if not the first RTS games ever. Yeah. Herzog's Vi, I remember renting it when I was younger. I was in Kansas City. And we rented Herzog's Vi and fell in love with that game. It's so damn good. If you have a Genesis, if you have a way to play Genesis games, get Herzog's Vi. It's so unique and so damn good. Seriously. I'd stream it, but I think I would suck at it. I'd have to really practice for a while. Anyway, so Dreamcast anniversary. I was one of those people that I was very standoffish of Sega after the Saturn debacle. And the Saturn was a debacle in the U.S. It did really well in Japan, but it was a debacle in the U.S. And I worked in Lake Forest, Illinois, at Brunswick, and we used to go to the mall in Vernon Hills, Illinois, for lunch every now and then to the food court. They had a really good food court. So 4 or 5 of us went to lunch one day, and it was the launch day for the Dreamcast. And right next to the food court was a KB Toys. And I said, well, I was just curious. I said, I'm going to go over to KB and see if they even sold. Because, I mean, this kind of predates a lot of the internet, of today, where all information's there right away and everyone's bitching about everything. But I knew that people were kind of standoffish like I was about it. They were they felt burned by Sega because of because the Saturn was such a mess, and I was curious. I was really curious to see if the Dreamcast sold out right away. How did it do? So I got done eating and I walked over to the KB, and I basically just said, "Hey, how'd the Dreamcast do?" And the manager's like, "Oh, it sold pretty well." And I go, "Do you have any left?" And he goes, "Yeah, we got 2 left, but we had a ton," which I thought it was funny because I used to work for KB for a little while when I was in college, and so when Sega dropped the Saturn, they only sold it through a couple of bigger retailers like Toys R Us. KB Toys got completely screwed. KB Toys wasn't on that first drop. So KB's buyer basically said, well, we're not ever going to sell the Saturn. And they didn't. So I was surprised that KB had the Dreamcast. So somebody mended some fences somewhere. So he said, yeah, we got a couple left. And I said, well, what games do you still have? Yeah, we have a few, but a lot of them sold out. And I just decided, fuck it, I'm going to buy it. Didn't plan it. It wasn't on my agenda at all. But I said, all right, well, I guess I'll take one. So I bought a Dreamcast, got Ready to Rumble Boxing, I don't remember, Soul Calibur, obviously. Still one of the best launch day games for any console ever. But I think I bought like 5 games on launch day. And I brought it home. Hooked it up to I didn't even have my Sony Vega yet. So I hooked it up. I believe I had a Toshiba at the time, but it had S-Video on it. But I had bought a VGA box for it right away. And I can't find it right now, which bums me out. It's this little orange box. Really good interface because it has S-Video, VGA, and audio output. But bought the S-Video cable for it right away and hooked up the TV, and man, Soul Calibur, first game I put in. Damn, was that a good game. So I was kind of wrestling with getting used to the controller and the cable coming out of the bottom, and of course I bought a VMU, so I had to figure that out and what does it do. But the Dreamcast became a system that I really fell in love with. I'm bummed out that it didn't do that well, mainly because of piracy and whatnot. And I'm sure Josh and I talked about this a ton on the old podcast, but the Dreamcast was ahead of its time in a lot of ways. It's a fantastic technology. It used this NEC chipset. And the cool thing about it was the way that it performed the way it did, as well as it did, was, let's say you have a mountain in front of you that's rendered in polygons. The chipset that they used would only render the polygons that you would see. Whereas a lot of games nowadays, and even back then, if it was polygon based, it would render all those polygons, even the ones you didn't see, especially on the PS1 because they didn't have a Z buffer, and it would eat up a lot of the CPU cycles, which it didn't need to do. So the Dreamcast was kind of saving resources by only rendering what you could see. But it did, at the time, it did such a great job on texture filtering, and they were doing some stuff that you'd never seen before. A little bit of anti-aliasing, not a lot. I mean, there's a lot of games that alias pretty well on that system, but it was a great system. And they had a lot of good games. And, you know, EA felt very burned by what happened with the Saturn, and they didn't really support the Dreamcast. But I'll tell you what, man, NFL 2K, that was a great series. I played the hell out of those games. NFL 2K2 especially, so refined. And, you know, every Dreamcast had a modem on it. I paid to use the modem. Luckily, we had a local number in Kenosha where I lived. I had this cart right here, actually, is sitting next to me. It's a printer cart. It's got a base and then 2 shelves. So I actually set this printer cart up with a ViewSonic 17-inch VGA monitor. And then I had 2 Altec Lansing speakers with a subwoofer. So the subwoofer went on the bottom. The speakers, I put Velcro on the base of the speakers. And I sat them down right on either side of the monitor. And I could roll this around my apartment. I had a 2-bedroom apartment back then. And I could roll this around. So if a friend came up for the weekend, like if Rock came up to visit for the weekend, I always wake up at 7 in the morning. It's a curse. And my friends that would come visit, none of them really ever woke up until 11 or 12. So, you know, the game systems and everything are in the bedroom, in the living room. And I didn't want to wake anybody up, so I would roll the Dreamcast into my bedroom and I'd play NFL 2K 1 and 2 online against other people. I was pretty good at the game. But it was great, man. It was a lot of fun. And the Dreamcast is a damn good system. Especially for how small that thing is. When you look at the size of the Dreamcast compared to the other consoles that were out at about the same time, like the PS2 especially, that thing packs a lot of punch in a very small package. My monitor. There were some fantastic games. The second World Series and on, the first World Series baseball really stunk on that system because I think they rushed it. So I remember bringing it home, and you couldn't control the defense. You could only bat. So I remember being on the phone with Rock, like, something's wrong here. Like, I can't field. I can't control the fielders. And he's like, oh, go to the options. It's got to be there. Find out a couple days later, no, you can't control the fielders. It was so weird. But those World Series games, man, the later ones, fantastic. I still love those games. Crazy Taxi, the first one, my God, I played that game a lot. Soul Calibur, I played it all the time. You know, Soul Calibur was a fantastic game. Even the first Dead or Alive, not a big fan, but it looked good. Boob physics and whatnot. But it was a great system. It's beloved. It's kind of like the GameCube too. You know, the GameCube never really did that great. And I love the GameCube too. I really do. There's some fantastic games on that system, but you know, it's funny. The Dreamcast, I think, is more popular today than it was when it came out, unfortunately. But it's a lasting legacy. Then the Xbox came out with which a lot of people believe is the Dreamcast 2, because a lot of that team went to work at Microsoft after the fact. Yeah, but you can get a Dreamcast cheap nowadays, guys. Don't hesitate. Pick one up. They're awesome. And they're actually easier to use with modern displays because they do VGA. You can get a VGA to component adapter pretty easily, or they make VGA cables. The VGA cable's fine. It's one of those times where I'm so used to the VGA and how crisp and clear it was that I've got kind of a thing against it. But I still have it for ease of use, and I use it. You can also get a Dreamcast modified with the DC to HDMI interface. Somebody can actually mod the Dreamcast and put an HDMI interface right on it, and they're fantastic. They're really, really good. Fully menu-driven. You can pull up a menu if you hit a button combination. Does a scaler, all kinds of shit, and it's really cool. I should actually send one of my 3 in and get them done. So anyway, Neo Geo. 2 things on Neo Geo. First up, Neo Geo SNK tweets, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, the most obnoxious and out of the blue and non-descriptive tweet in a long time. And basically, I should have brought the stick up here, but the second home joystick that mainly came with the Neo Geo CD, everybody calls it the Bean. And it's this arcade joystick. I'm going to take this hat off. It's getting warm in here. It's this arcade joystick for the Neo Geo. And the base... So, like... Do I have it here? The original... Yeah, too many cables. The original Neo Geo joystick looks like this. For the home. So this is the AES joystick, Arcade Entertainment System. Show you on that camera? Show you on that camera. So the Bean is basically the same joystick, but the base itself is kind of shaped like a bean or a peanut. The funny thing is, I actually like that joystick a little bit better. The buttons feel way better. But all of a sudden, SNK tweets a picture of the Bean controller. But you can see that it's got like a USB connection and all kinds of shit. And everybody's like, what is this crap? So I guess they showed it at TGS. And from what it sounds like, it's SNK being SNK once again. And it looks like it's going to be another kind of mini system, which is SNK's third. They did the Neo Geo X, which that joystick is actually Neo Geo X, but luckily it works with the FPGA. The Neo Geo X was an absolute disaster. It's a piece of shit. I have one. It's crap. Picture quality's awful. Game delivery's awful. The handheld portion of it is awful. It's got a 16:9 screen, even though all the games are in 4:3. It's awful. Then they brought the Neo Geo Mini out, which is kind of... I should have grabbed it, but it looks like a little arcade cabinet. They're neat. It's got an HDMI output, a mini HDMI output, and the controller... You can get external controllers for it that are USB-C, and it's a nightmare. Like, the controllers don't work with anything else, and you can't use an adapter. I think there is an adapter now, but I don't know. I have to look at PlayAsia. But they had a couple different variants. Like, one of them had a ton of the fighting games, and then they had this international version, which I have, which doesn't have very many of the fighting games. Because, I mean, Neo Geo was really well known by a lot of people for a lot of the fighters, Fatal Fury, King of Fighters, etc., Samurai Shodown. I don't play fighters that much anymore. I'm too old. I have no reflexes. So now this new one, so I don't know if you saw, but Capcom is bringing out a dual arcade stick, this humongous base. And it's the Capcom logo as the base. There's 2 arcade joysticks, and it actually has, I don't remember how many, I think it's like 10 or 15 Capcom arcade games in it. One being Aliens, which is a huge, huge deal, because they never brought that out for any other systems or anything. But they're bringing this thing out, and it's got the arcade sticks and everything, and it's all one unit. I'm not getting it because it's ridiculously expensive. But I think Neo Geo is, or SNK, I always want to say Neo Geo, but I think SNK is trying to capitalize on that now. So they're bringing this Bean stick out, and it's got some embedded games in it. I don't think they've shown a games list yet. But then it's so weird, because then they show that you can plug the game pads from the Neo Geo Mini into it via USB-C. But then it's got a USB power adapter, which is fine. But then it's got a regular USB connection, and some people are thinking that it's going to act as a regular joystick for USB connected use. So like on the PC or even on this FPGA or whatnot. But they're not telling anybody anything. This is so SNK nowadays. Like SNK back in the day when it was arcade and AES and everything else, They're kind of community guy before there was really a community. He was the guy that posted in the magazines all the time. The Game Lord. The guy's a really good friend of mine. I got to know him back then, and he doesn't work there anymore, obviously, but he's a really good friend of mine. And even then, like, I would have to ask him questions, and he was like, "All right, if you don't tell anybody, I'll tell you." SNK, what they are today is not the SNK back then, but all they're trying to do is capitalize on stuff, and they keep swinging and missing all the time. Somebody posted a video. They actually shot a video at TGS of the stick itself, but there's no explanation what's on the thing. There were no cards there saying what's on it. SNK haven't released a press release at all. We're on their press list. You would think that they would release something, but no. So they just like dropped this tweet with a picture of a bean controller, but it's different color and everything. And then you see all these ports, and you're like, what the fuck are they doing? So SNK, get your shit together. Anyway, the other SNK news, so the Mr. FPGA I've been talking about a lot. It's this little device about this big. It's basically like 3 Altoids cases on top of each other, a little bit bigger. It's a hardware solution. So instead of running emulators like the Genesis Mini and the SNES Mini, FPGAs have cores. They're called cores. And what people do is actually simulate the hardware of a certain system, in this case, to run games on. And what you get out of that is better compatibility, because you're actually simulating the chips themselves. You're not just throwing an emulator up there with a wrapper and hoping that you have a processor that works and hoping that you have this and hoping you have that. So they're actually mapping out a Z80 chip, let's say. And they're doing it all in software. But it's on the you're programming hardware. The FPGA itself is hardware that you can program. So I have a lot of systems on it. I love it. It's been a great project. It's been a great tinker for a long time. I'm really happy with it. Well, somebody released a Neo Geo core for it. And it's fantastic. Right out of the gate, it is fantastic. The funny thing is, the way the Neo Geo works, the cartridges are the same, like these humongous, bigger than a VHS tape. They're these humongous cartridges. But they're the same game for the arcade and the home system. Different pins, but the chips on board and the ROM on board the cartridges is the same between the home system and the arcade system. The BIOS tells the cartridge what to run. Now, I can get around it. So I've got this, which is this little adapter that changes the pinouts so that I can run the arcade cartridges on my home system, which I bought years and years and years ago when it was $650. And I worked at EB, so it took a while to save up that much money. And then I put what's called the Unibios in there, which is still available. You can download it for free for emulators and whatnot. And the Unibios works on the Mr. FPGA. It's awesome. So the thing about getting the arcade cartridges over the home cartridges is that because there are so many arcades around the world that use Neo Geos, I mean, you saw them everywhere, those big red cabinets with multiple games on them. The game carts were so much cheaper for the arcade than they were for the home at the time. Now it's become so popular that the arcade carts are getting just as bad as the home ones. But I have a lot of home carts. But then I got this adapter, I got my Neo Geo actually modded, because one of the problems with it originally was that it only had one AV out that either did RGB, which back in the 90s when I bought that, I don't know what the frick RGB was, or it came with a cable that had a single composite video cable and a single audio output, and then there's a headphone jack on it. So I actually plugged in a different cable to the headphone jack, so I got stereo sound, because the original AV cable that came with the system only did mono sound. That's how messed up it was. And you're paying $650 for this thing. So a few years ago, I had it modded. I had the guy put S-video, I had the guy put stereo audio out, and I had the guy put component video on. At the time, he's like, well, don't you want RGB? And I'm like, well, won't it still work? Oh, yeah. But I didn't know RGB at the time. I had a Sony Vega that I loved. It did component beautifully. I was happy with component. And I love S-video. So I've had this Neo Geo forever. I have a lot of games for it, probably too many, which that's why I'm kind of thinking about selling it now, because this core is outstanding. But one of the things about it is, and one of the bigger jokes is that the Neo Geo actually has essentially the same sound chip that the Sega Genesis has. Yet the Neo Geo sound is amazing. Voice work, actual real instruments, streamed music, all kinds of great stuff. But the reason that that works is that the cartridges themselves have so much memory on them that all the stuff streams directly from the cartridge down to the system, down to the metal. So that's where all the music and everything comes from. It's not the system itself generating it, it's all from the cart. So on the Mr. FPGA, when I got it, I got the biggest SD RAM module that was available. I think it's 32 megs or something like that, 32 megabytes, I believe. Well, now a lot of these Neo Geo carts, because they're so big, especially the later ones, like Metal Slug 4 and 5 and Guru, Mark of the Wolves, they go past that. So now the guy that I got the Mr. from, it's MrAddons.com. This guy, Porkchop Express, is going to start offering, I believe it's 128 megabyte SD RAM module. And some people already have them because they built them themselves. I'm not that savvy anymore. But when you get that module, all the games work. Literally all the games work. And it works really well. And the timing is great. Little tiny glitches here and there, but I'm talking about like flashing pixels, stuff like that. I've been playing it extensively. The funny thing is, the big joke now is I'm using the arcade stick that came with the Neo Geo X, because it's essentially the same stick that came with the home system, but it's USB connected and it plugs right into the Mister. And I told Mark, I'm like, hey, finally something good came out of the Neo Geo X, because I have two of those sticks. I just have to find the other one, because that Neo Geo X is awful. He and I both bought him. I think he sold his. But it's great, because now I'm playing Neo Geo games with the stick that I'm so used to. And it works. It just works. And it took a little bit of setup. Hi, sweetie. Ginger woke up. But it's awesome. And I've been putting some videos up on the Retro Nation YouTube channel. I would give you the link, but I don't think it has a name on it anymore. But yeah, I just did a playthrough tonight. I'm gonna try to post it tomorrow. But this Gears 5 video is taking forever to encode on my Mac. But I just did a complete playthrough of Cross Swords, which is basically the only RPG that you'll ever find on Neo Geo. And it's a cool game. It's just my timing sucks. But I'm just thrilled with it. Absolutely tickled that it works so well right out of the gate. The people that built it did a fantastic job. It's one of the most stable cores I've seen on this thing so far. Honestly, I think it's better than the TurboGrafx core right now. Because the TurboGrafx one still got these weird timing issues with sprites every now and then. But, you know, the FPGA out of the box, it's a little pricey, but my God, am I getting a lot of use out of it. Just a ton of use. And it's such a little package. And most of the time, I'm just playing with a wired Xbox 360 controller. Right there. Which camera? Camera 1, camera 2. Camera 1, camera 2. If you're not watching this, I have two cameras running tonight because I'm silly. But the other cool thing is there's this other project called BlissBox that isn't just for the FPGA. It works with emulators too. So it works with the NVIDIA Shield TV and some other emulators. But basically, it's a little dongle that it's just a USB dongle. And they make a 4-player one as well. But I just got the single-player one because I don't have any friends. Right there. I don't even know what it says. That's funny. But the other end of it has HDMI on it, which is funny. But then they make all these dongles for a ton of systems. So here is HDMI on one end and TurboGrafx, or actually PC Engine on the other end, or Turbo Duo. That's the smaller plug, not the original TurboGrafx 16. But they make tons of dongles. So I bought, I don't know where, oh wait, here we go. I bought a ton of them. And you can get more. But here's Super Nintendo. Here's... I don't know why I got this one. PlayStation? I have no idea why I bought this, but it might work on the Shield TV. N64? I mean, tons of dongles they sell. I didn't even get them all. But now you can use all the controllers from the actual systems on this Mr. FPGA and on some emulators and whatnot. It's really cool. A little pricey out of the box, but it wasn't bad. But now they're doing a thing for the Mr. FPGAs called the Bliss Box, which is going to be another add-on for the hardware. It's just going to be another layer. And it basically has 4 of the HDMI connections on it. And you can just plug the dongles directly into it. It's cool. I'm not going to get it because this is enough for me. But it's really neat. I mean, there's some big strides, but, you know, I don't mind emulation, but this FPGA stuff, it's just grabbed me. The SNES and the Genesis FPGAs from Analog are out of this world awesome. The FPGA that I have for the TurboGrafx, which I plug into my Super Graphics, emulates CD as well. It's from a company called Terra Onion. Terra Onion also just brought out a cartridge that looks like the virtual racing cartridge from the Genesis, that big honkin' cartridge. And it is like an EverDrive, but it also does CDs. So now you don't have to have the big hulking Sega CD that likes to fail all the time. You can just run CD images off this thing. And for preservation, such strides have been made the last couple of years. It's just amazing. And I have all this hardware, but I'll tell you what, this is going to save me a lot of space. A lot of space. And I can't be happier right now. I mean, there's improvements that need to happen, but they update them all the time, and it's a blast, dude. It's an absolute blast. All right. Enough of the old shit. And first, so tonight, I don't drink much anymore at all. Drinking a Maker's Mark bourbon. It's called the Private Select. It's a thing that they do. They partner up with different bars, different liquor distributors. They partnered up with a racetrack down in Kentucky. And what they do is they have somebody come in from that bar or whatever, and they let them create their own recipe. So a recipe for bourbon or whiskey is all about the wood staves in the barrel. All of them start out the same with what's called distiller's beer, which is essentially moonshine. Same stuff. Just a lot cleaner. And I have a bottle of it downstairs. Maker's Mark's distiller's beer. I have a bottle of it. So this is a recipe that you can only get these bottles at the distillery for this. And what it is, it's all of their Maker's Mark taste testers and QA analysts actually came up with their own recipe. And then there's another bottle I have that's called, I don't remember what it's called anymore, Star Provision something or other. That's the president of the company that is the grandson of the guy that started it. He came up with a new recipe as well. This one I like a lot more. This is from the taste testers, but really rare. You can only buy these 2 bottles at the distillery itself. The other stuff you have to get from whoever they partnered with. So anybody that's ever come up to MGC, we have a grocery store chain here called Woodman's. It's an outstanding place. I don't have one even anywhere near me. I think I have to drive like an hour and a half to get to one. But Woodman's is this humongous grocery store, but the liquor department is bigger than some of the grocery stores you've been in. And they have one of theirs as well. They have their own of this Private Select. So I actually bought a bottle of it. It's at my parents' house. It's good. But it's a really neat thing that they're doing. And I haven't had... When's the last time I've had alcohol? It's been a while. Been a few weeks. So I just decided I was going to have a little podcasting juice tonight. But it's really neat stuff. And if you ever try distiller's beer, just know that that's basically moonshine. It's just white whiskey. It's whiskey that hasn't been aged in a barrel yet. That's all it is. But I like it. But it tastes like Everclear. Everclear is basically the same thing. Anyway, on to the new shit. You guys still awake? Anybody still watching? You guys still awake? Oh, Fox left. I'm sorry. I didn't see that. The microphone's in the way of the chat. Anyway. You know what I should do is just put that other camera, like 4 of them, Just stack them up. Anyway, Gears 5. So, I've never been a big Gears fan. I just don't like the gameplay. I always feel like the controls are sluggish, blah, blah, blah. I've made my feelings about the series painfully clear. But Jeff Rubenstein, a good friend of mine, works at Microsoft, obviously, gave me a code for Game Pass. Not the super duper Game Pass, which I'm getting a little frustrated when a digital system like that is now tiered, that you have to pay more to get a different, like, better version of it. But I digress. So he gave me a code for Game Pass, and that means I get to download all the Microsoft stuff. So grabbed Gears 5 on my Xbox One X, and I streamed it. I'm actually encoding the video right now, and I can put it up on our channel if you're interested. And you should be interested. This isn't a console war situation. It's a franchise that's only on one console, and some people may not have a chance to see it. If they're only on PlayStation, they're only on Switch, you may not see any Gears games. I think it looks great. It's Unreal Engine 4, I believe, the newest Unreal Engine. I think it looks great. The visuals are very well done. It's Gears gameplay through and through. It's dude bro to the best of it. You know, all the gravelly voices and the but I'm having fun with it. I'm enjoying it so far. I think that sometimes knowing what to do can be a little vague. Would I buy this with my own money? No. Although it is funny, Rubes had actually sent me a code for like a year ago or so. It was for like the Gears of War collection or something. So I have all the old Gears of Wars. Not just the backward compatible stuff. Not just the backward compatible stuff from the 360 and the X, or I think it was only 360. But the remakes that they brought up to the Xbox One, I have all that stuff. And I tried to play, I think I tried to play the first game. I just couldn't get that far into it. But I think I've streamed about an hour and a half of Gears 5, I believe. I think it looks great. Audio design's really well done. I'll see if I play it anymore. I was thinking about streaming it some more up here on the Xbox One S, since I'm not streaming in 4K anyway. Is it the best looking game ever? No. Is it the best looking game on Xbox One X? It's one of the better looking games. Is it the best? No. It's a good example of Unreal Engine and what can happen with Unreal Engine when you have some really talented coders, because they're doing things that a lot of people didn't think they could do. I don't want to diminish it, though. I think it is a really solid game. I would play it over Halo probably. I don't like Halo 5. I tried again not too long ago. I just don't like it. But Gears 5 it's interesting, and if you're interested and you want to see what it's all about, I'll try to get that video posted. I don't know if my Mac crashed or whatever because I just lost video, but I'll try to get that video encoded and get that uploaded to our channel if you're interested. It'll probably say something like Gaming Tangent or Streaming Tangent or something like that, but you know, I know we're a PlayStation site, but we talk about other stuff all the time, and that's all I've talked about this whole time so far. But it's good to know what the other people are doing or what the other sides are doing. There's some cool stuff that came out on Switch not too long ago too. But I forget the name of it. That Platinum Games game looks really good, but I'm not going to buy it yet. But SNES on Nintendo Switch is really good so far. They just need to add some more good titles. All right. Really briefly, because somebody asked me about it. A Plague Tale: Innocence. I did stream it. The replay is definitely available. I still want to murder that kid. It's a sister and a brother in old-time France, I think it is. And the brother is obnoxious and annoying, and I want to kill him. But it is a fantastic game. It's basically about the Black Plague, I believe. One of the plagues. Check it out. It is a really good game. And I know MJC talked about it. I think he did the review, and he was very favorable. Fantastic soundtrack, really good gameplay, really good visuals, compelling gameplay. It's a cool game, so give it a chance. Seriously, it's it's definitely a sleeper hit, in my opinion. I think it's a really good game. All right, Borderlands 3, I'm not going to talk too much about. I own a few of the other ones. I've played them. I just don't... I'm not interested enough in it. I don't know why. I feel like because the older Borderlands, a lot of my friends played it a lot more, and I know that they say that it scales better if you're at level 10 and your friends are at level 100. It scales better, but that shit never works right, in my opinion. And yeah, it looks good, and I've seen some Digital Foundry stuff on frame rates and whatnot between the Xbox One X and the PS4 Pro, and it sounds like it's good, not great on both systems, but there's some weird issues going on. I just don't know if I care. You know, I'm still working on Wolfenstein 2. I'm still working on another game I'm going to talk about soon. I'm still working on, well, now I just put NASCAR Heat 2019 or whatever. I don't know. The new NASCAR Heat I just downloaded today. Still working on Wreckfest. I just don't think I really have the time or the inclination to worry about Borderlands 3. I've just never been in love with that series like a lot of people have. I think it's cool. I think it looks great. I love the visual style. I mean, I've got the little claptrap, the remote control claptrap that stands on one wheel. It's awesome. Do I play with it? No. Because it doesn't like carpet. And I have a lot of carpet in this house. I know Dave bought it. We did not get it for review. A lot of sites did not get it for review, especially on console. Whatever. It's 2K being 2K. I'm not going to... I don't give a shit. We have more than enough games to review right now. But, yeah, I mean, it looks cool, and I'm sure it'd be fun to play with your friends. I just don't know if it'd be more fun than playing Anthem with my friends, or Destiny 2 with my friends, or Modern Warfare, the new Modern Warfare when it comes out with my friends. A lot of games I can play with my friends, and I just don't know if Borderlands 3 needs to be one of them. I don't know. I'm sure there's big fans out there. More power to you. I have the games that I gravitate toward, and everybody else has the games that they gravitate toward. I just don't really give a shit about Borderlands 3. Is what it is. Oh, that's good bourbon. All right. So when I was streaming the Modern Warfare beta the other day, somebody was asking about Wreckfest, and I wanted to bring it up. So Wreckfest, I believe, is from Big Ben Interactive. You know what? I should really pull up the PR for this, so I can give you facts. Wreckfest. So Wreckfest is... It's funny because it's Big Ben Interactive, which means it's out of Europe, I believe. But Wreckfest is a dirt track racer, but it's also got some really cool shit in it. So you start the game when you do your career. The first thing you do in the game is kind of a demolition derby with lawnmowers, with riding lawnmowers. This shit's real. I live in Wisconsin. I live in the Midwest. This shit's real. They've done that in my town. But that's how you start the game. And it's fun. The game supports a wheel. I haven't plugged it in yet and used it. I've been playing with the DualShock the whole time. But that's the first event. After that, you have a standard dirt track race. And you're bashing into cars and trying not to let your car die. Kind of like a demolition derby, but not fully a demolition derby. It's more like when you would do one of those figure eight tracks, that kind of thing. But it's really good. It's really good. And I haven't gotten too far into it. I've only played it a couple hours so far. But I'm telling you, man, it's really good. And I hate, let me reiterate, I hate dirt track racing. Almost every one that I've played. Gravel was pretty good. Demolition Racer, whatever it was on the PS1 was pretty good. This one's really good. It's fun as hell. The AI is not too... It doesn't cheat too much. The visuals, the audio, The controls, they're all really good. And it's a fun derivation of racing. It's not the standard Assetto Corsa. It's not Project Cars. It's not Forza. It's not GT Sport. It's not any of those standard racing games. It's this cool variation which I've attended. There's a dirt track a mile and a half from my house that I can hear on the weekends. It's good. Give it a try. If you're into racing at all, especially kind of over the top, silly racing that you don't have to worry about loadouts too much. And, oh, did I put the right brakes on this time? Did I run the right tires? Did I put mediums on when I should have had sports hard? None of that. You're driving old Camaros and whatnot from the 70s. And you're trying not to bash the front of your car up too much so that the engine doesn't work anymore. And these things aren't made out of paper. I mean, they take a good amount of damage. But everything's you can interact with everything. The fences, the tires, everything they've got. It's fun. And I'll definitely stream it if you all want me to stream it sometime. I'll play the hell out of it. Because I do want to hook up the wheel. Because from what it looks like, it does support the racing wheels. And I'd love to try it. Because I think that would be crazy, especially if it's got force feedback. Because of all the corrections that you have to make on these dirt tracks. And it's not dirt track racing like in GT Sport or any of the Gran Turismos. It's not where you're... It's not like Sega Rally Racing or anything like that. It's just dirt track. And it's fun. And they've got weather effects, which I haven't dealt with too much yet. But seriously, Wreckfest, damn good. And I think Chaz... I'm not sure if Chaz put the review up or not yet, but Chaz is reviewing it, and I'm pretty sure he's happy with it too. But yeah, I don't remember who asked about it, but I definitely I talked about it a lot on the stream, but I wanted to make sure I talked about it here because this is obviously going to probably be listened to by more people than that dinky little stream I did. But looking at our YouTube numbers, check it out. It's fun. It's really fun. And it's got online play. I want to say it's got split screen, but I'm not sure, so don't hold me to that. But it's fun. I really enjoyed it, and I'll be playing it more. Yeah, it's out of Vienna, Austria, Helsinki, Finland, and it's a totally American game. It's so weird. I mean, they really nailed it. So anyway, so Control from Remedy. I did stream it when I came back from Kansas City. I streamed it. I think it's revolutionary in a lot of ways. I am not an X-Files fan, though, and I'm not a David Lynch fan. It's so weird. That system keeps turning on and off. So the weird shit, I don't appreciate it as much as people that love the X-Files and love David Lynch and whatnot. The technical stuff in that game is fantastic. It's been patched, too, so it's running a little bit better even. But I got to a point where it was almost like this mini-boss battle or a boss battle or whatever. And even in that early stage, this boss seemed to have an overly effective counter for every attack that I had, which that early in the game, which I'm talking to maybe an hour and a half into the game, I'm not sure that I liked it in that respect. I'm not sure that I need an overpowered boss that early in the game. I mean, I expect things to kind of ramp up and ramp up and ramp up. And, you know, I would try to throw something at this boss and it would just dodge it every time. This is like the first kind of boss battle that I have. And I'll be honest, I haven't played it since I did the stream. I lost my interest. So I'm sure I'll play it eventually. I still need to play Man of Medan. Which I haven't even touched yet, but from Supermassive. But I just kind of lost interest in playing Control. I think it's really good from a technical standpoint. It's really good. The acting is fantastic. The story itself is compelling because you don't know what the fuck is going on. But that boss battle thing, I tried it a few times on the stream, and it was so frustrating. And I know I'm old and I don't have good reflexes and whatnot, but it's almost like they designed it with themselves in their heads where, well, I'll just make it so that you have to do this one thing, but we're not going to tell anybody what that one thing is. They have to figure it out. All right, but give us a hint, I don't know. But I think it's cool, and I think a lot of people are going to like it. I'm probably in the minority with this one, but I like the game. I just don't love it. Let's just put it that way. So yeah, TGS happened, and there's a lot that came out of it. I got to watch a gameplay demo of the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Holy shit. I own the original Final Fantasy VII. I did not play all the way through it because my buddy Travis borrowed it and beat it, and then I lost interest. But I do own it. I own the original, the black disc of it, which is the more rare one, I guess, or something. That remake looks amazing. It looks amazing. This is me talking about an RPG. I kind of want to buy it and play it. I'm not kidding. It looks so damn good. I was blown away by this gameplay demo, and I hope they release the demo over here somehow. Maybe bring a remastered version of Tobal number 2 out and then put the demo with it or something. I don't know, but man, that was cool. That was really impressive. I like how the battles are now kind of real time, and you still have the turn-based stuff as well, and the mix, but the visuals with the Unreal Engine stuff that they're doing, that looks awesome. Anyway, anybody awake? Is anyone? Oh, the chat just died. Y'all awake? Cameras are still working? Well, that's probably why nobody's watching anymore. All right, last thing on my list, and then we'll go to community stuff. Two things. The other thing that came out of TGS that really grabbed me was Death Stranding and the new info that we found out from that. Finally figured out, or kind of heard what's going on, what the Strand stuff is, and what you're actually doing. It's so Kojima. Everything is working, my dude. Thanks, L-Team. I'm really on the fence about Death Stranding. I think it looks really cool, and the kind of metagame stuff that they're doing with the online presence that you have. You don't actually play with other people, but it's kind of like Bloodborne, where you can leave things behind and whatnot. It's a cool idea. I just don't know if I care about it. I just don't know. I'm sure I'll get the game eventually, but like I bought Metal Gear Solid 5. I've never booted it up, ever. I loved MGS4. And I'm not a Metal Gear Solid fanboy at all. MGS4 is the second Metal Gear game I ever finished. I finished the original on the NES, and then I finished MGS4, and I loved it. I loved it. Amazing game. MGS5, I never booted up. It's sitting on the shelf, probably still in the plastic. Death Stranding looks really cool, especially from a technical standpoint. Lindsay Wagner's in it. Come on. I don't know. It is funny though, because Jeff Keighley's in the game too, apparently. And of course, the TGS, all they're doing is tweeting that, "Hey, here's Hideo Kojima," and I kind of know Jeff. I mean, Jeff knows who I am and whatnot, and we talk. Like, he knew that I was retiring from the podcast. I ran into him at an event, and he brought it up. I'm like, what the fuck? How would you know that? And I like Jeff. I like Jeff a lot, but I always want to tweet when they're together and they're tweeting like crazy. I always want to tweet like, "Oh, you two know each other?" Just to be sarcastic. And that's cool. I mean, it's going to be that Kojima charm. It's going to be that Kojima weirdness that everyone loves, and that's great. And I don't want to denigrate the game at all. I expect that it's going to be awesome. It's running on an amazing engine, because that Horizon Zero Dawn engine, Decima, is freaking fantastic. I just don't know if I want to play it. I'm sure I'll buy it eventually when I have a job. I don't know. I still need to finish Spider-Man, damn it. And I keep saying that, and I never boot the fucking thing up. And then I started Gears. I haven't finished Red Dead Redemption 2. I haven't finished. I mean, there's so many games that I haven't finished. Wolfenstein 2, which I've gotten really kind of focused on lately, and I haven't played that for a week, you know. And then this Neo Geo core comes out for the Mister, and I'm playing all these games I already own, but then I don't have to hook up the Neo Geo and the OSSC and have the two big ass joysticks sitting out, and I can just run it off the FPGA. It's awesome. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm really on the fence about Death Stranding, if I'm going to even buy it or not. I don't know. I mean, are you guys, people that are watching, people in the community that are listening, put that in the forums thread. Are you interested in Death Stranding? Are you going to buy it? Are you at the point where you're kind of sick of the vagueness from Kojima, or is that what you love so much and you're totally buying in? What does everybody feel? I know there's a hubbub about the game, but everything about it looks amazing from a technical standpoint. I just don't know if I just don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, the last one I'm going to talk a lot about, I think. So, the Modern Warfare beta, the new Modern Warfare game, which, why the fuck did they name it Modern Warfare? Seriously, this is like naming the new Xbox the Xbox One. I think this is going to be my favorite Call of Duty since the PC days. Seriously. Graphics are fantastic. Control is fantastic. They simplified the leveling up mechanic, and they've really gone old school with how you update your weapons, how you set up your loadout. They don't have ridiculous score streaks as much as they used to. It's a simple score streak system. They've slowed it down, so the pacing is awesome. Sound design is phenomenal. It really feels like I'm playing a Call of Duty from the PC days before Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. It was funny because the beta they had capped at level 10, which I got to in a couple of hours. It's a throwback. Yeah, Modern Warfare, definitely. So they capped it at 10, and I hit it after a couple of hours or something. You can see it on the stream. I streamed a lot of it. I was hooked, man. It's going to be this weekend again, and it's going to have the crossplay with the Xbox One players, and I believe the PC players too. They're going to send me a code for the beta on the Xbox One so I can check it out on the X. I'll play it. I just really don't like the controller as much. I have the Elite controller right there. Which is nice. It's got the paddles in the back, so I have the left triggers mapped to these, which is great, because with this crappy hand I can't do the triggers. But the damn thing is so heavy, and I'm really struggling with the Xbox One controller. But I'll play it, and I think it's going to look good on the X. I'm sure it will, but the game is always going to look better on PlayStation because they have that marketing deal with Sony, so they're going to make sure of that. But I freaking love it. I've been telling the PR people, and a couple of the PR guys were actually with us in game a bunch over the weekend to play the beta, and I could not stop praising it. I love it. I love it. It's not like the last, I'd probably say 4 or 5 years, where it feels like you have to put 2 clips into somebody to kill them unless you get a direct headshot, which some guys are really good at it because they have a mouse. The last few years I've been playing like Blops 4 and whatnot, Advanced Warfare. You watch these replays and you know for a fact they're using mouse controllers. But it really feels like in this one, that's not going to matter as much. They've slowed the pacing down. As Jimmy Jim Bo Slice says, it's a throwback, and it is. And I couldn't be happier. It was funny because they raised the level cap on the last day of the beta from 10 to 20, and I didn't know that. And I logged in and I hit 20 right away. That's how much I was playing it still after the cap. You can level up each one of your guns. which I don't know what that actually does. I know some of it is the attachments you can put on there. But it's like old school, even like COD4, where each weapon you can only put so much in terms of attachments on. Like, you can't overload them. You're not, at least in the beta, you weren't going after loot boxes to get new costumes and new face paint. I'm sure some of that shit will be in there, but God, I hope they minimize it. And I play Blops 4 a lot. I do. I play it a lot. It's online only. It doesn't have jetpacks. It doesn't have wall running, which I hated in some of the last ones, like Advanced Warfare. I play a lot of Blops 4. And I refuse to prestige, because prestiging is stupid. But Modern Warfare, I'm in. I'm in. Even based off the beta, I'm in. I'll be streaming the fuck out of that game, and nobody cares. Because we're noticing a lot of people have really grown intolerant of Call of Duty. We used to have a thriving Call of Duty community back in like the Modern Warfare days, Call of Duty 4, even COD3. We had a huge Call of Duty community when PS Nation first was like at its infancy. We used to play online all the time. And that interest from people has steadily declined every year. And, you know, even the streams we did, we barely had anybody watching. The YouTube videos, the replays haven't really had any viewers. A lot of people don't give a shit anymore unless they're kids. It sounds like a stereotype, but it's true. The games got so fast and so twitchy that a lot of people my age, I'm 47, a lot of people my age, they don't want to play that shit anymore. But this new Modern Warfare beta, fuck, is it good. It is really good. I'm thinking about it now. Like, I actually logged in to the PS4 last night just to see if the beta was still up, and it wasn't. But I'm jonesing to play it again, and it was just a beta. But I'm totally jonesing to play it again. And what sucks is I got to go away this weekend to my parents' house, so I'll be playing on a PS4 Amateur all weekend. But I'll still be playing as much as I can. I'll still be playing because I'm in. Totally. So I would almost beg those of you out there that used to like Call of Duty, give this one a chance. It's an open beta this weekend, so it should be readily available to anybody. Grab it, play it. Seriously. It's not like the last few years. It's really not. But give it a try. And if you like it, we'll arrange gaming nights, guys. I'll play it as much as I can. I can already tell you. My left thumb got so sore. And this is a hand that doesn't have any feeling. My left thumb got so sore from clicking to run. And then, Dave, if you're still watching, I learned something new. That maybe I'm the last one that learned this. If you double tap the run button, you can do like a crazy fast run, but you don't have very much control over your guy. So there's actually 2 speeds of running now. I found it by accident. But you double click the run and all of a sudden he kind of runs with his arms flailing a little bit. It's crazy. It's awesome, guys. It's awesome. I can't tell you how excited I am for the new Modern Warfare. That's coming from me. You know how long it's been since I've been excited for a Call of Duty game? The last game I was excited for was Call of Duty 4 Remastered. Seriously. Let me say that to both cameras. The last Call of Duty game I was excited for was Modern Warfare Call of Duty 4 Remastered. You heard that right. Okay. I love it. I can't wait. I cannot wait. And people are asking if it's got a campaign. I think this one does have a campaign because Blops 4 didn't. I don't care. I mean, if it's there, I'll play through it. I don't really care. Like Battlefield 5, I never finished the campaign. I just didn't care. Because there was a sniping mission and And also snipers are pussies. If you're a sniper, I don't like you. Get out there and fight like a real man or a real woman. Just saying. Anyway, any questions before I go into the community stuff, chat? Any questions? I know I've covered a lot. How long have I been going here? Ooh, hour and a half already. Whew. Who needs a co-host? I can just talk my ass off. All right. First up, comment or question from Twitter from Eric Hofer. And he says, your thoughts on Blasphemy. So Blasphemy just came out. And it's funny, we still haven't received the PlayStation review copy yet. Because Sony hasn't gotten them the codes yet. But they sent me a code for Xbox to try out. It's really cool. It's hard. It is not an easy game. But Blasphemy is kind of an old school Metroidvania side-scrolling action game. And I don't want to say it's retro graphics because it's not. It's just really stylized retro-ish graphics with outstanding animation. It even has like cutscenes that are voiced and really nice animation in the cutscenes. But it basically takes place in like, I don't know if they said anything in the story like when it actually takes place. But it seems like it's in the Middle Ages or somewhere around there. But basically, your character, it's like you're on the Crusades, kinda. But your character wears this big kind of cone helmet with spikes on it. And I don't remember if you remember if you ever saw the Da Vinci Code. And the one character that flays himself, he keeps that thing on his leg that has the spikes in it. Think that. So your character actually has, like, he's doing his penance all the time, and there's some blood here and there. Like, it gets kind of bloody in one scene where you kind of fill your helmet with blood and you put it on, and that's your power. But it's not like this evil satanic shit or anything. It's like you're on a mission from God or something. I'm still pretty early in it. I was playing it today again. It's so fucking good, though. It's a really neat game. It's published by Team 17, the Worms folks, among other things. It's so neat, though. And I think one of the problems is I need it on PlayStation because I'm fighting that controller, that Xbox controller. But it's going to be the same on both systems, for sure. It's really neat, but it seems like kind of a Metroidvania-ish. But I don't think there's that much backtracking as far as I can tell so far. But it's kind of multi-leveled, side-scrolling action. I don't think I've had to go back for anything yet. But yeah, it's cool. I should stream it. Maybe I'll stream it tomorrow or something. But it's incredibly unique in terms of the subject matter. Like, these guys are kind of carrying these big crucifixes, like kind of like Jesus, carrying the cross. And they'll actually attack you with the cross. A lot of weird shit. But you're only armed, so far I'm only armed with this big sword, and you can go to an altar and do penance, and that actually upgrades your sword or your attack. Gorgeous graphics the way they did it. It's not... The problem is if you see a screenshot, you're going to think it's like retro 8-bit or something like that. It's not. It's not at all. It's just the graphical style they're using, but they don't... It's not like, oh, we're going to keep the same color palette of the Commodore 64 and blah, blah, blah. No. It's got a lot of layers of scrolling. It's got some great and detailed animation all throughout. Really detailed and really cool cutscenes that are fully voiced. Great soundtrack. This kind of moody soundtrack that... it doesn't stand out until you pay attention to it, and all of a sudden, like, wow, this soundtrack's really good. So, Blasphemous is the name of the game. I'm not sure if is it actually out yet. That's what I'm curious about. But seriously, it's fucking cool. I didn't even know about it really until they emailed me about it, and he's like, well, all we have is Xbox codes. I said, well, no, we want to review it on PS4, and he says, well, keep the code. I'm like, all right. So it was cool. I've been able to play the game. All right. Well, thanks for that question, Eric. This is from our buddy Gruel, Dale Coolis. Hot takes. Says, give us some hot takes on arcade golf games over the years. How does Neo Turf Masters, various Mario Golf, and Hot Shots editions stack up? Which ones are the best? Did Attell and Carell's voiceover in Outlaw Golf scratch your funny bone? Outlaw Golf, man. I haven't thought of that game in years. That was original Xbox, I think, wasn't it? I didn't like that game too much. Arcade. I mean, to me, the biggest arcade golf games was probably Mario Golf on the Versus system, which is based on the NES. Golden Tee. I mean, I was in Golden Tee leagues for years with my buddy John. It's a bar league, and we would go to bars every week and play Golden Tee golf. I was actually really good at Golden Tee. I used to break the video screen. Like, they always put a glass or a plexiglass screen in front of the actual monitor. And the way I hit, my hand would hit the thing, and I broke like 4 or 5. Neo Turf Masters, though, which is available on the PS4, which is available on Xbox One, which is available on Switch. It's a Neo Geo golf game. I'm telling you, even if you don't like golf, if you don't like sports, Neo Turf Masters, fucking A, is it awesome. What kind of sucks, and it's not a big deal, but what kind of sucks is that the ROM that they used for Neo Turf Masters on the consoles, the new consoles, is that they didn't use the ROM from the Neo Geo CD, which actually has an extra course that you can unlock. So there's 4 courses on the one that they're using, but there's actually 5 courses on the Neo Geo CD one, and that 5th course is tough. It's really good. But Neo Turf Masters, easy to pick up, a blast to play. You can get through a full game in like 10-15 minutes. It's a blast. But I mean, arcade golf, it's Golden Tee, bro. Golden Tee is outstanding because you can be a total novice or you can be an expert at golf itself. And a lot of what you know about the game of golf applies to Golden Tee. Same way with Hot Shots. Hot Shots, that series always seemed like kind of cartoony, like Mario Golf on the GameCube and whatnot. But Hot Shots Golf is a very technical golf game if you'll let it be. And that's what I always liked about Hot Shots. You had to worry about the lie of the ball. If it was on an angle, if you're in the rough, if you're in sand, but the lie of the ball, and you had to worry about the wind, and you had to worry about this and that, everything. But if you didn't want to worry about that shit, you could still play the game and have fun. And that's what's so great about especially Hot Shots. I mean, those games they're deceptively technical, but they don't have to be, and that's what's so great about them. They walk that line of technical and fun and arcadey, and that series walks that line better than any golf game out there. But Neo Turf Masters, fuck, I'll boot that game up any day of the week. I actually had the Switch downstairs for some reason. I was gonna download something and I just took it downstairs with me, and I had the Pro Controller with me because I had to charge it, and I never do this either, but I set the Switch up and I played a game of Neo Turf Masters just sitting on my couch because I was watching the Brewer game, so I couldn't use the TV for the PS4. So I just brought it up on the Switch and played it. And it's cheap on the Switch and on the PS4 and whatnot. It's totally awesome. You should totally get it. If you don't have it, Neo Turf Masters, a Neo Geo game. And Mario Golf is great too. It's Camelot, the same developer for the GameCube one. And what else were they on? I think there was a N64 one also, but it's the same developer as Hot Shots, Camelot. And the Mario Golf game on the GameCube especially is really fantastic. But I still like Hot Shots better. Okay. Nathan... I'm going to get this name wrong. Nathan Urquidez, Frozen Vapors. Talk about the Borderlands 3 review controversy. There's a controversy? Does anybody know what this controversy is? Or is it just about them being so selective about who they supplied review copies to? Like EA. And that's 2K. I mean, it's always been 2K. 2K's even done that with NBA every now and then. Every year, you don't know if you're going to get NBA for review or not. But is there a different controversy I don't know about? Chat? Anyone? Sorry, Frozen Vapors. I honestly had not heard that there was a controversy. And then he says, your thoughts on Death Stranding? I've already said that. The No Man's Sky update. I've been meaning to boot it up for like a week and play it in VR, and I still haven't gotten around to it. Oh shit! I totally forgot to talk about the Extra Life stuff at the beginning. Extra Life prizes. So a listener reached out and is working with me right now to try to build an app so Extra Life, because of me, Extra Life supplies anybody that plays and gets donations a CSV file, which is basically an Excel file when you boil it down. So this listener is working on an app to take that file and pull it in and assign all the raffle numbers and everything automatically. So I'm trying to work with him on that, but I've been really busy this week looking for a job and give my dog a bath, which that was almost a full day effort because someone wouldn't get in the tub. Being selective and claiming it had to be about secrets, I assume. What does that mean? Oh, you mean the controversy? I don't know. Everyone's always reading into shit. I mean, the big thing with Borderlands 3 was that it seemed like they were supplying it to a lot of streamers that were on PC, and there wasn't much going out for console. I was hearing from a lot of people. I mean, David kind of heard about some of that stuff too, but I was hearing from a lot of people from other sites that I know that were asking like, hey, did you get it? And like, no. And I wasn't going to put up a stink about it. I really don't. We got more than enough to review. I really don't give a fuck. If 2K wants to do that, that's their prerogative. I really think that they're kind of walking a fine line, to go back to 2K and Borderlands 3. They're kind of walking a fine line because they're in a PR nightmare right now. Because certain people attached to Borderlands can't shut the fuck up and have to piss people off talking about loot boxes and whatnot. And I think they're in a PR quagmire right now. And to then get very selective about who you're going to supply review copies to and choose not to have all that much coverage, you're either putting a lot of faith in the fact that people are going to buy it no matter what because they love Borderlands and because it's such a loved franchise, or you're trying to kind of stealth release the game even though all I see is advertisements for it on TV. I've never purported to understand 2K or some other game companies and how they operate. I think it's silly, honestly. But if they're only targeting limited streamers that they know they're going to get good results from and they're going to get positive reviews from, sure, that's from the EA playbook. I mean, we know that EA does that. EA's lightened up on that quite a bit. I think they learned their lesson. Because people on the internet like to do one thing. They like to guess about what's going on. They like to come up with their own theories based on nothing. Fact has no place on the internet. It's all about guessing. It's all about, I think this is what happened. I think this is what happened. It is what it is. Nobody Rojas says the guns are the only thing pushing me through that game. I'm trying hard to love it because I love 2, but it has so many issues for me. Really? Okay. Yeah, I haven't paid attention to Borderlands 3 at all except for Digital Foundry put out a couple of videos showing performance. And I really love what Digital Foundry does, so I usually watch their stuff. What's this? L-Team, being selective and claiming it had to be about secrets, I assume. I also feel the fact that they gave you an Epic account was dumb. So even on consoles, you have to create an Epic account? Really? Because the Epic Store, I think, is hitting consoles. People have such a bug up their ass about the Epic Game Store. I get it. Everybody got used to Steam. But there's Origin, there's Bethesda, there's Epic now. Everyone's got their own fucking store. And I get it, because then you're spreading things around. Every now and then on my PC, I've got to launch 4 or 5 stores so I can update all the games in that catalog. It's stupid, but at the same time, the shit I've seen on Reddit about the Epic Game Store and all the conspiracy theories, like Manifold Garden, like all these games. Oh, now you're not on Steam and you're on Epic Game Store. We were never on Steam. Manifold Garden was never on Steam. But people just assume everything. It's so fucking crazy. And the thing is, especially with Borderlands, the whole series and the whole thing about the guns. I mean, Destiny and Destiny 2, it's always about, oh, look at this gun, look at that gun. The fuck cares? Does it kill? Does it kill? That's all I want to know. I don't care what the fucking gun looks like. L-Team. Nah, just to play it on PC, they gave you a separate Epic account. They didn't give you a code. Oh, really? So they actually gave you an Epic account to get the press version of it? That's silly. That's a dumb fucking way to do it. So either the Epic Store is that bad, or that's fucking silly. Wow. That's dumb. Like, just to give you an example. What's the VR headset for PC that Facebook owns? God, I'm out of it. So, that store for that VR headset that's on numerous devices, including the Samsung Galaxy S. When you have an account on there, they can actually tag your account as press, and they can then apply games to that press category, and you can get to the stuff early to Oculus. You can get to those games early that way. How can they not do that in the Epic Store? That's stupid. Jesus Christ, that's dumb. Anyway, you know why they're doing that? They started doing that on Steam too, because Steam used to, years ago, they used to give you, on the Steam store, they would give you a press account, which basically meant you had access to every single thing on the Steam store. If your account was tagged as press, you had full access to everything. You could download anything on the Steam store whatsoever. Nothing cost anything. And then one day Steam stopped that, and all you saw was people, game writers, just flipping their shit because they had unlimited access. Then all of a sudden, oh, they took all this shit away. I get it. So that's probably why they're doing that at Epic Game Store, which is stupid. Just open a new category. Anyway, you're gonna get me all worked up. No Man's Sky though. No Man's Sky. I really want to play it. I'm afraid to go back to the game though. I'll be honest. I'm afraid to go back to the game because it's been a while since I played it, and I was in a really bad spot at the time. And not remembering how to do things, and I'm kind of wrestling with the idea of do I start over, which I really don't want to do because I've worked my butt off to get where I'm at, but I don't remember anything. So, we'll see what happens. Most anticipated release and why? Oh, most anticipated release and why it's Cyberpunk 2077. I'll be honest, I wasn't that excited for Cyberpunk until I saw some of the gameplay videos. That fucking game looks awesome. That looks awesome. But right now, I think my most anticipated game is Modern Warfare, the new Modern Warfare. I'm serious. I love a good FPS, and that game looks, that beta was awesome. And I'm going to play the fuck out of it this weekend, too. Is there anything else? I really haven't looked forward to too many games. I mean, I'm starting to think that Cyberpunk's going to be on both platforms, this generation and the next one, on the Xbox Zero and the PS5, as well as the current ones. Just like it sounds like Ghost of Tsushima is going to happen. That's what I'm hearing, is Ghost of Tsushima will probably be on PS4 and PS5. I don't know if it'll be at the same time, but I don't know. Yeah, Cyberpunk looks amazing. The videos that they put out, holy shit. And again, it's RPG-ish, but it looks good enough that I want to play it. And then there was just a PlayStation Home documentary that came out by Mystic Ryan. Talk about those old days. Home. Well, I was wearing the hat before. I'll put the hat on. There's the PlayStation. You know, I'm very divided on PlayStation Home. It never lived up to the promise, in my opinion. And there were a lot of politics involved. And the thing is, we were kind of privy to a lot of the politics because we started the community theater, which, for what it's worth, is still a big deal in my mind. The fact that they trusted us enough to come to us and ask us to help launch that. And literally, we were the first ones in the PlayStation community theater. I didn't know how to edit video. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. The first video we put out was god-awful. There was some funny stuff, but it was god-awful. And I was dealing with Mark leaving and Josh and Joel starting. So I had a lot going on. I think the people that also got into the community theater all owe me a big thanks, because I don't think they realize how much bullshit I went through. I had to meet with lawyers. I had to meet with PlayStation lawyers. I can't even tell you how many times. For rights issues and what, like, one of the first videos we did, wasn't the first one, but one of the first ones we did was footage we shot at E3 at the PlayStation booth. And one of the things that came out as a red flag was behind our shoulders at the PlayStation booth, because we were upstairs. And I think we were talking Killzone 3, if I remember right. But over our shoulders, you could see the Nintendo booth. Just the Nintendo booth. And the lawyers had a field day with that, because they didn't understand what the concept was. They were just looking at the letter of the Sony law at the time. And I had to work with Cade, who was the community specialist, and his boss, Jack Buser, who's now at Google on the Stadia team. Us three and a few other people had to work with the lawyers to get them to understand what was going on and what the whole idea was, that we weren't advertising Nintendo. They're just in the background. The meetings I had to have with lawyers. It was crazy. And, I mean, there were times where I was saying, like, is this worth it? And home wasn't really much of a thing back then when we were going through all this. And again, it was a lot of promise. It was a lot of, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. Okay, sure. Yeah, right. Even though you're looking at it in its current form and you're like, really? Because this feels like a really clunky MMO. And I remember, actually, specifically, I was at E3 one year at the Shrine Auditorium where PlayStation used to have their E3 press conference. And I think it was after the show, I was in the lobby talking to a couple of the mid managers, like Christian Phillips, who's been on the show before years ago, this guy Eric Wass, who's now at Bethesda, and some other guys. And this little short bald guy walked up to me and stuck his hand out. Hey, how you doing? I'm so-and-so. I'm like, hey. He's like, I'm the lawyer you've been dealing with. I'm like, oh my God. And I said, I started apologizing to him, like, oh, if we beat you up at all, we're really sorry. He's like, no, I needed the education. So at the end of the day, it was a really cool thing. It didn't last very long. I think we only did, 5 or 6 videos. Half the reason we didn't do very much because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I had a real hard time with it. And, we were trying... It was weird because Joel, is in Milwaukee, which is 3 hours away from here. Josh is all in New Jersey. So it wasn't like we could sit down at a table and just do this video. We had to try shit like, we both have a video file, and then you count down from 3 and then hit play so that you're watching the same video on both sides and you can commentate on it, which we did. Stuff like that. And Joel didn't participate very much I think he was just not interested, and he wasn't really around for very much of it anyway. But Josh was always really tough to deal with on that stuff. So it ended up being a lot of me, and then I just got to the point where I didn't want to do it anymore. But it was really cool, and you know, I don't know if I have that many fond memories of it. I mean, it was awesome having a PlayStation Nation shirt in home. I mean, how fucking cool was that? And that was all our idea, you know. One of the stories that I always laughed about, and I don't think I've ever told this story, was Greg Miller begged Sony to get Podcast Beyond in there. And Sony kept telling him, well, you guys aren't community. You're a corporate site. You're IGN. And I think that was one of the kind of pieces of animosity that kind of went up between us and between Greg and Colin especially, was that we were in home and they weren't, and that kind of bruised their egos, I think. But I heard from a few people at Sony that was a big deal. Which at the end of the day, who gives a shit? But it was still cool. The thing about home was it had a lot of promise, but at the end of the day, it was literally just shit to go look at. Even the games in it weren't really that much games until they did the little home arcade, which there were some cool games in there, but the platform itself, I mean, it was built as an MMO essentially, and it just didn't allow you to do very much. You know, the interactivity was clunky. The visuals were cool, and you could do some neat stuff, but it was very static. You know, it was just, I don't know. I think if they kept it going and they brought it into the PlayStation 4 and we got that trophy room we always heard about that we never got to do anything with, I think it could have grown into something good with the better hardware and the better cloud technologies and whatnot. So I guess I would say home was ahead of its time, for sure. You know, some bad stuff came out of it too. The PlayStation MVP program, I never agreed with. I thought it was a cool idea, but it just empowered people too much. And we saw a lot of ill effects about the MVPs. I'm not saying every single MVP was a piece of shit or whatever, but a lot of them were. And we saw at E3 and even at PAX, I saw this roving group of MVPs, almost like a roving group of wild wolves or something. It just, I think it made PlayStation look bad, and I wanted nothing to do with it. But I mean, you know, Sony was trying new things, and you can't fault them for that. And our friend Cade worked his ass off. He really did, and he remains a good friend to this day. I don't talk to him enough, honestly. But that guy was a true friend for a long, long time. And I talked to him a lot. And I was always happy to see him. But, you know, you go to E3 and they would get some of the MVPs in. And just some of the get-togethers were weird. Because they would do, like, PlayStation Home community meetups, that sort of thing. And, I mean, it was cool to go see everybody and say hi and whatnot. But, yeah, it was neat to watch. I agree, L-Team, that home was pretty cool to be able to go in and watch like E3 trailers and game trailers and stuff, because you were there with a bunch of people and voice chat kind of worked at points. That stuff was cool, and I wish they could have done more with it, but the technology just wasn't there yet. And the home servers couldn't handle it. But I really do feel, especially with how much we see streaming nowadays in not just Twitch, not just YouTube, but everywhere, if they did a home today, it would be so much better. Especially the extra computing power of the PS4. It would be way better. So I think it was ahead of its time. It was a great idea. It was a very fun experiment. I don't think about home a lot anymore, but extremely honored that they asked us to be involved and that we got to start something that for a while was really cool. I mean, it was a neat way to get the community involved and have the videos up there. And Hip Hop Gamer, and I don't remember who all put videos up there. It was it wasn't that big of a group. It was only about maybe 15 or 20 sites, I think. I'd have to ask Cade. But I'm honored that they thought of us. I really am. And we were the first people that they contacted, and I'll never forget that phone call. I still have that phone call recorded, but I'll never forget that because we hung up, and Mark, before we hung up, Mark's like, I got to talk to you. Call me back. I'm like, all right. And called him back. He's like, I have to quit. Like, what? Right after we agreed to do this? I was going to tell you a couple weeks ago, but I have to quit. We're going to start a family. I'm like, all right. So, thanks, Mark. But anyway, enough about home. Haha, PS Home was a thing. A really strange thing, but I remember the PS Nation videos. Yeah, it was fun. And we never knew when the videos were actually going to go live because you had to wait. They had a bunch of different servers for home, and the servers all had to individually refresh with the new content. And you couldn't control which server you connected to when you got into home. It would just put you on a random one, like World of Warcraft or whatever. So we could. That was one of the problems, is that we would try to do like a viewing party, and you couldn't guarantee that you could get everybody in there because each server instance only had a ceiling of whatever 100 people or whatever it was, and that's where I say they were ahead of their time. The technology just wasn't there yet. And it's a shame. I mean, it was a cool thing that they were allowed to do that experiment, and I'm sure it wasn't cheap. And some really neat things came out of it. But, yeah, home was weird. But it's part of our history. Okay. Ray Luca says, the flash cart revolution. More into detail regarding the Polymega, which I've talked about at nauseum, and how different it is composed of flashcard options. So flashcards, it's interesting. I only own 2. I own the GBA EverDrive, and I own the TurboGrafx EverDrive because Mark gave it to me. And I don't use the TurboGrafx one really at all. I think I have it sitting here. Yeah. So here's the TurboGrafx EverDrive. Right there. Oh. So, flashcards, if you don't know, it's basically a cartridge that's, got all the pins and everything to be an actual card for the console itself. And there's in this case, a micro SD card on here, and I can load all the ROMs onto it. Some people have now taken that concept further. So for like the TurboGrafx, I've talked about it in the past where Terra Onion brought up the Super SSD, it's called, which is an FPGA device that actually plugs into the back port of like the TurboGrafx 16, the Core Graphics, and the Super Graphics. It doesn't work on the Duo because there's no port. But that is also like a flash drive, but it also has an FPGA in there to simulate the CD drive. So you can run CD games off of, which is fantastic because I always worry about my Duo dying. The optical drives on those things are fragile at best, and they are going to die eventually. There's a lot of people that are going through repairs all the time for Turbo Duos and for TurboGrafx CDs. And in that case, I love it. There's always that talk of copyright and you're stealing games and whatever. Although for the TurboGrafx I'm not, because I own almost every US game. I think I'm 12 short, something like that. So there's now a new one for the Jaguar, which I'm probably going to get when I get a job, because Jaguar games have gotten ridiculously expensive, and there's no reason. Because the Jaguar, it's hit or miss, man. But it's neat seeing some of these other games that are considered rare for the Jaguar. I want to get that one. There's actually a flash drive up for the Neo Geo, which is from Terra Onion as well. And it's crazy expensive, but there's no reason nowadays with this Mr. FPGA. It does just as good of a job. I was really weird about flash cards for a long time, but I've warmed up to them a lot. I like that new Mega SD from Terra Onion. I like that you can do different music for some of the games like they do. There's a SNES cart called the, what is it, like SNES 2... something like that. It's kind of like an EverDrive, but it's got an extra chip in it. And people are putting new soundtracks. Like there's an orchestral soundtrack for Zelda: Link to the Past. That's really cool. The only one that I saw for the Mega SD so far is, I think Joe from GameSack put like a different, better like soundtrack for Streets of Rage 2, which I didn't like because I love the soundtrack in Streets of Rage 2. Even though this is like orchestral and everything else, it didn't feel like the same. But flashcards are expensive. They have to have logic in them. I've got the GBA one for the GBA consolizer mainly because, I mean, I don't mind buying GBA games. A lot of them are cheap. But I just don't want to swap games all the time. I just want to have it there. So you just pull it up and you got a whole menu of games and you just choose the game and go. The Polymega is a little bit different, though, because the Polymega, you have to have the original game and download it. So the Polymega is more like a clone system that also allows you to dump the games out to it. I'm curious if the Polymega will let you, because I know you can install games from the CDs as well. So I'm curious if you can burn like Snatcher for the Sega CD and put it on the Polymega. Because Snatcher is ridiculously expensive, but the Sega CD version of Snatcher is the only version of that game that's in English. Everything else is Japanese. PC Engine version, whatnot, they're all Japanese. In that case, I'll be happy because then I can finally play Snatcher on the Sega CD without a problem. I mean, I've got the ROM. I can play it on an emulator right now. I just haven't gotten around to it. But I'm curious if burn CDs will work, and I'm pretty sure they will. Because again, I mean, I think I think a lot of these games have gone past the, I don't know, past the line that Konami's going to lose money on it, on Snatcher, for instance. Unless they decide that they're going to release the US version, English version to other consoles, which they should do. But they won't anymore because Konami hates Kojima now. They got divorced. So, in that instance, Snatcher is in this limbo because they don't want anything to do with Kojima anymore, and that was, I think, his first game, or one of his first games. Not his first game. But, yeah, I don't know. I've warmed up to flashcards a lot, but at the same time, I don't need them as much. Because I've got the Mr. FPGA, which is chock full of games on all these systems. NES, Master System, Genesis, SNES, TurboGrafx, Commodore 64, Amiga 1200, Game Gear, all kinds of stuff. I've got the analog Super NT, which is the Super Nintendo version of the console. The jailbreak firmware comes out for those things pretty soon after the console is released. It's full. The only ROMs I can't run on the Super Nintendo one are the Super FX chip games. They just released an update to that jailbreak to allow use for DSP cards. So like Mario Kart and Pilot Wings and F1 Race of Champions and these games that all had DSP chips on the cartridges, they just added support for that in the jailbreak. Same way with the Super, or the Mega SG or whatever it is. Yeah, Mega SG, which is the analog FPGA console for the Genesis. Somebody added, just like in the Mister, support for the one game that uses a special chip, which is Virtua Racing in the Genesis. So you can run all those ROMs off the SD card. So those consoles are great because you're running these ROMs on essentially the real hardware. It's FPGA, but it's actually running on the hardware. It's not an emulation thing, which is something I had to explain to Joel because Joel got the Genesis one, and I was asking him, like, hey, did you do the jailbreak and did you do all this? Because you can play ColecoVision, you can do all this stuff, and he was really standoffish because he's one of those people that he doesn't want to mess with anything and he doesn't want to break it. I'm like, no, you can't break the console because Kevtris, the guy that designed the FPGA, Kevtris actually designed both of them and the NES one so that you cannot brick the system when you're doing firmware stuff. And I said, you're still running the ROM like it's off the cartridge, but now it's off the SD card, so it's faster, in essence. And then Joel let me help him, and I walked him through how to put everything on his, and I think he's really happy with it. But the Genesis one's cool because it's got Sega Genesis support, Master System, Game Gear, and for whatever reason, ColecoVision, because I think ColecoVision has one processor that's the same as the Master System, I believe. But it's still such a weird addition. But what stinks is the SNES one doesn't have any other system cores on there, but I think he's adding them finally. But there's no other cores on that one. But those consoles, dude, they're so good. And Kevtris, his cores, the Mister is damn good. It is. But Kevtris, his stuff is artwork. It's so damn good. Anyway. But that Jaguar one I want to get. When I get a job, I definitely want to get that Jaguar one. It just came out not too long ago. No, my luck, they'll sell out and I won't be able to get one. Jason Hall, thoughts on GT Sport and the transition to the PS5 that's rumored. What I'm hearing, and it seems like it's more than a rumor, is that GT5 is going to either GT Sport or GT5 are going to be launched on PS5. Probably GT Sport since it's a platform that's doing really well. I am impressed and extremely happy that GT Sport is pulling off what they, these lofty goals that they gave it when they launched it about making it, the center of esports for racing and working with FIA. And I mean, they just announced a partnership with Michelin, so all the tires are going to be Michelin. They just announced a new partnership with Porsche, so they're going to have, I believe, some Porsche models that are only going to be in GT Sport, I think. But there's some classic stuff there. I'm just not a Porsche fan. But I watch those streams. They're doing these FIA events all over the world. They just had one in Germany. I watch that shit. It's compelling. It's so much fun to watch. And it's so different than watching like NASCAR on TV or Formula One or whatever, because the racers are right there and they've got the camera on the racers and you can see what the teams are doing. I love it. I absolutely love it. And GT Sport just continues to be awesome. They keep adding to it. They just added the Spa track to it. They keep adding cars slowly, but GT Sport's awesome, and I don't play it enough. I love it, but I don't play it enough. I don't play anything anymore. So old. But yeah, the rumor I'm hearing is that GT Sport's probably going to be a launch title for PS5, and I'm fine with that. I just hope my wheel works with it. And then he says NASCAR Heat 4. I downloaded it today. I have not played it yet. I'm going to probably play it tomorrow and see how it does it with the wheel, because my main gripe with the NASCAR Heat games is that they're built in Unity, the Unity engine, which so far has not been great for a racing game. It's clunky. It doesn't look great. It didn't have wheel support until last year. And even then, the wheel support's awful. I think I streamed it once, and it was just terrible. So we'll see. I'll play it tomorrow. I downloaded it. I was actually going to download it here in the office, and I'm having problems getting the PS4 to connect. I think the HDMI cable went bad. But, we'll see how it goes. But I'll do the full review for it. And stuff and junk. Yeah, it'll be interesting. Chris Volek, SNK in 2019, year and a. I think I've talked SNK to death. I mean, that new stick could be cool. I mean, if I can connect that new bean stick if I can connect that new bean stick up USB to like a PS4 and a Switch and this FPGA, fuck, I'll get it. I don't care about embedded games. I just don't care. They gotta stop this shit. This is their third attempt at doing a mini console. Third! And the first two were fucking terrible. Well, the last mini wasn't bad. Everyone bitched because it didn't have a battery. I didn't care. I just don't care if it had a battery or not. I thought the form factor was cool. I just don't like playing on the little stick and everything because I can't do it with my hand. But I hate that they didn't release a joystick for it, but they released the gamepad for it, the CD gamepad, but it didn't have micro switches in it, so it didn't have that clicky. And they're like, oh, but that's really hard to do. Even though the Neo Geo X had it. So I guess it ain't that hard. It's, SNK. And last but not least, why did I put this last? David Barkley, let's sidetrack with some Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I love that show. It's funny too because the main guy, I always forget his name. I didn't like him that much in SNL, but I love that show. If you haven't watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine yet, get it on Hulu and watch it. It's hilarious, absolutely hilarious. And I never expected it, but man, I am hooked on that show. Yeah. So anyway, anyone gonna see Rambo: Last Blood this weekend? I actually think I might go see it. That looks damn good. I'm surprised I'm saying that about a Rambo movie because after the first two I loved, but after that, the stuff they made, I wasn't that thrilled about it. But yeah. Anyway, I think that's enough. What have I? 2 hours now at least. Oh, I'm longer than the regular podcast with two people on it. All right. Well, I'm gonna bolt. Thanks for watching, you crazy people. You. Thanks for listening. Head over to psnation.com. Check out the reviews and stuff. Get on the forums. Get on the forums and tell me what you want to hear on this podcast. If there's anything that you want to hear from me, that's the best place to put it in the thread for this episode. This will go up probably a couple weeks from now. But I'll put the video up probably tomorrow, maybe. We'll see how it goes. Use the affiliate links, please. I'm going to need a lot of money for shipping Extra Life prices soon. Thanks to... I'm forgetting his name now. Give me a second. It's either Joe or John. I'm sorry, my brain sucks after the stroke. But thanks for the help with getting this app up and running, and hopefully we'll get through some testing soon to get the Extra Life stuff done. I do have the groupings done downstairs for prize packs and whatnot, and I'm going to start looking for boxes in my pile of boxes in my sunroom to start boxing that stuff up so it's ready to ship. But I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks we can get this Extra Life stuff done, and maybe I can start getting this stuff. So use the affiliate links because I'm going to need a ton of money to ship this shit. It's going to be expensive shipping, to say the least. So, all right, thanks much. Get out there, play some games. Have a great one. We'll talk to you soon. Camera 1, camera 2. Camera 1.